Abraham and Sarah. The journey of faith and the fulfillment of God's promise.
The divine covenant. In a time several generations later, God chose to make a special promise to a humble man named Abram. This was not a simple promise, but a sacred covenant, an agreement of the highest honor between two individuals. God made a grand promise to Abram that he would be the progenitor of a great nation. His name will echo through the corridors of history, and his descendants would be a blessing to all the earth. The challenge: Abram's life partner, Sarai, had been unable to conceive. This presented a seemingly insurmountable hurdle to the fulfillment of God's promise. In addition to this, both Abram and Sarai were advancing in age, he being about 75 and she about 65, which only added to the complexity of the promise fulfillment. The journey to the promised land. Amidst the doubts and uncertainty, God gave Abram a clear direction. He was instructed to leave his familiar surroundings, his country, and his kinfolk and venture towards an unknown land. Guided by God, Abram and his family journeyed to a land known as Canaan. This land was a divine gift to Abram and his descendants, and it soon came to be known as the Promised Land. Doubts and assurances as the sands of time slipped through the hourglass and Sarai remained barren. Abram found himself questioning God's promise. He sought answers from God, expressing his concerns about dying childless and having to leave his inheritance to a servant. God responded with a reassurance that Abram will have a biological son who would inherit his blessings. The birth of Ishmael and strained relationships. Growing impatient and desperate for a child, Sarai proposed a plan. Her Egyptian servant, Hagar, was to serve as a surrogate mother. Abram consented to this arrangement and Hagar bore him a son named Ishmael. However, this decision led to strained relationships within the family. Hagar started despising Sarai, and in retaliation, Sarai mistreated Hagar. The situation escalated to the point where Hagar and Ishmael had to leave Abram's family. Divine reappearance and name changes. When Abram was in his 99th year, God made another appearance. During this divine encounter, God instructed Abram to serve him faithfully and live a pure life. He then changed Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations, and Sarai's name to Sarah, meaning mother of many nations. God reiterated his promise about them having a son. Laughter of disbelief. The promise of a child at their advanced age was met with laughter from both Abraham and Sarah. Their disbelief was evident, but Abraham, wanting to believe, asked if God could fulfill the promise through Ishmael. God, however, reaffirmed that the promised son would be from Sarah, not from Hagar. Birth of Isaac, the son of promise as foretold by God. Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son a year later. They named him Isaac, which means laughter, symbolizing their joy and perhaps the disbelief they initially felt. The fulfillment of the divine promise. With the birth of Isaac, the wheels of God's promise started turning. This child was the beginning of a lineage that would eventually be known as Hebrews. These people were chosen by God to demonstrate to the world what it means to live a life in accordance to divine ways.
As we conclude the story of Abraham and Sarah, we pivot our narrative focus to the infamous cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Moving from Abraham's landscape of faith and obedience, we venture into a narrative of moral decline and divine judgment. Join us as we explore divine tests, angelic interventions, and the dramatic downfall of these two cities in our upcoming chapter. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button and subscribe to ensure you don't miss our next story. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please drop them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.